In the humid summer of 1986, a farmhouse in the backwoods of Floyd County, Indiana, became the center of a brief national headline. 3 children were rescued from a scene so grotesque it bordered on cinematic horror. Walls buckling under the weight of hoarded trash, windows shuttered to daylight, the air so thick with decay that even seasoned officers had to step outside for breath. Their parents were arrested on the spot, and the children, 2 twins and a baby, were whisked away into state custody. But in one of the photographs, buried deep in a stack of forgotten negatives at a local newspaper, something didn't add up. Behind the chaos, almost hidden in the grainy shadow beside the porch steps, was a 4th child. A barefoot girl, hair tangled, expression hauntingly vacant as if she'd just emerged from the dark. No one could say who she was. She wasn't in the reports. She wasn't in any follow-ups. She simply vanished, like the house had swallowed her whole. Nearly 4 decades later, Mae Dawson returns. The tires of her rental car groaned over the gravel path, which had nearly disappeared beneath a jungle of overgrown weeds and sun-hardened soil. Each turn of the wheels stirred up dust and ghosts. The driveway felt tighter than she remembered, like the land itself resented her return. As she crested the bend, the house emerged, weather-beaten and collapsing in on itself, yet somehow defiant, as if daring her to come closer. She hadn't seen the place since she was 8 years old, but even after all these years, the sight of it stole the breath from her lungs. The same porch, the same tilted roof like a spine hunched by grief. Time hadn't erased anything. It had preserved it in rot. Mae stepped out, her shoes crunching against the stones. Dressed in simple black slacks and a cotton blouse, she looked like someone visiting a grave. And, in a way, she was. Slung over her shoulder was a worn leather bag containing the tools she'd need: gloves, flashlight, phone, and one photo, the image that had summoned her here. She stood still, letting the sound of cicadas wash over her, letting her heart slow to something manageable. But as soon as she faced the porch, memory took over like a riptide. Screaming, the grip of strangers' hands pulling her through doorways cluttered with bottles and bags, the smell of mildew and body odor, her baby sister's sobs, her own. She climbed the steps slowly, feeling each creak echo in her chest. At the top, she took out the laminated photo. August 14th, 1986. There they were, Mae, her twin brother Mark, and baby Bethany, caught mid-rescue. But in the corner, just behind Mae's small shoulder, stood that other girl. Unnamed, unacknowledged, a mystery sealed into history by oversight, or intention. Mark had dismissed her when Mae brought up the photo weeks ago. Probably a neighbor kid, he'd muttered, uninterested, already half checked out of the call. But Mae had felt something, a pull, like her memory was whispering in fragments, like some part of her soul remembered that girl's eyes. And now, standing again on the very boards where the girl once stood, she noticed it, something the photo hadn't revealed. A crack in the floor, long and crooked like a scar. Mae crouched, hands trembling as she brushed away debris. There it was, a faint seam, deliberate. A square about 3 feet across, not damage, a door. Her breath caught. It hadn't been visible in 1986. Or maybe it had, and no one looked, or no one wanted to. She stood, heart racing, and hit record on her phone. Her voice was thin but steady. She documented the discovery, then set the phone aside. Gloves on, crowbar out. Each pull felt like she was prying open a wound that had never healed. The wood resisted, screamed, then finally gave way. The hatch opened into a gaping black cavity. The smell hit her first, like wet carpet, metal, and time. Mae gagged and staggered back, hand to her mouth. When she shined her flashlight down, her blood turned cold. Blankets, ragged and discolored. A pile of filthy plastic utensils. The leg of a doll, melted and chewed, and one small shoe, A child's pink Mary Jane. Canvas, with a tiny star on the side. She froze, her vision blurred. Her fingers went numb as she raised her phone to take a picture. But as the flash lit up the space again, she noticed something carved into the wood inside the hatch. Letters, small, shaky, scratched by desperate fingers. "I am the fourth." The air thickened. May dropped to her knees, her whole body shaking. The words echoed in her chest, louder than any scream. This girl hadn't just existed. She had cried out. She had tried to be found. Then, her phone buzzed. "Mark," she answered, voice barely a whisper. "Hey, you're at the house?" His voice was flat, guarded. "Yeah, I found something. A hatch, under the porch, with things inside, toys, clothes, the shoe." A silence, then a response she didn't expect. "You shouldn't be there." May's eyes narrowed. "Do you remember her? The girl from the photo?" Another silence. Longer this time. Then, "No." But the way he said it, tight, clenched, sent a shiver through her. It wasn't denial. It was fear. Like he'd been waiting for this day. Like something he'd buried was clawing its way back to the surface. May stared down at the hatch, her voice breaking. "You're lying." And in her heart, she already knew. For the first time in 38 years, May heard something raw and human in Mark's voice. A tremble, a fracture. The sound of someone remembering a nightmare they'd tried to bury beneath years of silence. And then came the words, soft as breath, but heavier than any truth she'd ever known. "I didn't think she'd still be there." Everything inside May paused. She didn't speak. Couldn't. Her brother's voice, distant and almost childlike, rang louder than the cicadas screaming in the heat. 6 words. That's all it took to upend everything. Not who. Not what are you talking about. Not May. You're losing it. Nothing like that. No gaslighting. No confusion. He knew. He remembered. May's body moved before her brain caught up, backing away from the open hatch, breath coming in short, shallow bursts. "What do you mean? Still be there?" she asked, the words tight in her throat. Mark's breath hitched. She could hear it, like he was pacing, trapped in some invisible room on the other end of the line. "Look, I didn't mean that. You're twisting it." "No," May snapped, her voice suddenly hot, alive. "You just admitted something. Someone. I found her shoe, Mark. There's writing in there. Somebody was kept in that space." "No one was," he said too fast. Too loud. "Don't lie to me," May shouted, her voice slicing through the trees like a whip cracking through memory. Her hands trembled. The rage came fast, unexpected, laced with something deeper, betrayal. She dropped to her knees again and peered back into the hatch, her flashlight beam cutting across the damp air. "You said you didn't remember her, and now you say you didn't think she'd still be there? Which is it, Mark?" Her voice cracked. Silence. Then, click. He hung up. May stared at her phone like it had betrayed her too. A wave of nausea rolled through her gut, sharp and familiar. She remembered this feeling from childhood, the kind that woke her up shaking, hearing things scratching inside the walls when everyone else was asleep. She pocketed the phone and turned her flashlight back to the hatch. The stench of something long dead rose from the darkness. It wasn't just mold. It was memory. Beneath the mess of old dolls and utensils, May saw the dirt floor, uneven, cracked. Shreds of insulation hung from the beams above like spiderwebs. She retrieved the crowbar and widened the hatch until the boards moaned beneath her. The structure held, for now. Switching her phone to video, she began narrating, her voice thin with adrenaline. Entering crawlspace, evidence of concealed compartment. Found, child's shoe, remnants of nesting materials. Etching on wall reads, "I am the fourth." Beginning descent. She lowered herself 1 foot at a time, crouching along the support beams. Her flashlight clenched between her teeth, every movement calculated and tense. The space was barely high enough to crouch in. The air felt old and angry. As her eyes adjusted, the objects began to multiply. A tiny mirror, cracked. A hairbrush tangled with something pale and matted. Torn pages from children's books. The Velveteen Rabbit, Goodnight Moon, Corduroy. All faded, some shredded beyond recognition. She reached for the mirror. The glass was clouded, warped. But when she tilted it, a faint shape reflected behind her. She turned slowly. There, carved into the wood, deep, ragged lines from a trembling hand. 4 stick figures. 3 had crude X's over their heads. 1 was left untouched, circled. It had long hair. May's breath caught. Then, creaking. She spun, turning off her flashlight. Her heart beat like war drums. Another creak. Closer. She reached for her phone, but before she could dial, a voice called from above, distant and distorted. "Hello?" May froze. Then another voice, clearer, official. "We're with the sheriff's department. Step out onto the porch." Confused and shaking, May climbed out of the hatch just in time to see 2 deputies approaching. Their white patrol truck idled behind them, the engine whispering under the late sun. One officer, spotting her, called out, "Miss Dawson?" She nodded, blinking against the brightness. "Neighbor reported a break-in." I wasn't breaking in," she stammered. "I own the house. My aunt left it to me. I have the deed in my bag." The taller deputy ascended the porch steps, eyeing the open hatch. "Looks like you were prying something open." "It's mine," she said. "You'll want to see this anyway." What followed was a blur, flashes of conversation, phones clicking, the dull scrape of boots against rotted wood. She showed them the trap door, the shoe, the etchings. One officer photographed everything, the other made calls. Soon, a detective arrived. John Howren, mid-50s, weathered, wore his blazer like armor over jeans and boots that had seen too many crime scenes. He knelt by the hatch, peered in, and whistled low. "You found this today?" May nodded. "What brought you back here?" She handed him the laminated photo. His eyes narrowed. His posture changed. This is from the 1986 rescue," he murmured, tapping the grainy image of the 4th girl. "She's not listed. No name, no ID. You sure this isn't just a neighbor's kid?" May met his gaze, unwavering. "She lived here. Someone made sure we forgot." Howren looked toward the house, its broken frame glowing orange in the dying light. "We're going to secure the site," he said quietly. "Forensics will comb every inch, but if this holds..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. They both knew what it meant. That night at her motel, May sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the photo like it held all the answers she'd ever needed. The TV played a muted news segment in the background. She didn't notice. Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number. Stop digging. There was no 4th child." May's hands went ice cold. She looked at the screen, then at the photo again. The barefoot girl stared back at her, shadowed, forgotten, erased. May whispered to the empty room, her voice brittle and haunted. "Then why do I remember her name?" The next morning, May found herself sitting in a chair that smelled like the 80s. Same linoleum floors, same flickering lights, same suffocating dread. Detective Howren led her into a windowless room in the Floyd County Sheriff's Office. He placed a recorder on the table between them and hit the red button. A soft click. The past was now official. Detective John Howren, Floyd County Sheriff's Office. May 4th, 2024. Interview with May Dawson regarding the 1986 rescue from 1120 Firebrush Lane and newly discovered evidence suggesting the presence of a 4th child. May didn't blink, didn't look away, because somewhere a voice was still scratching behind the walls. May sat in the interview room, her hands resting in her lap like they didn't belong to her. They felt foreign, like they belonged to someone who hadn't just uncovered a hidden past buried under dust and denial. Detective Howard watched her with the quiet, patient intensity of someone who'd sat across from 100 broken stories. "Take your time," he said gently. "I'm going to ask a few questions, but if you need a break, just let me know." She nodded, barely. "First," he said, easing into it, "can you tell me how you came into possession of that photo?" May inhaled slowly. "It was in the county archives. I'd been going through old property records, old crime scene files. I found the original negative from the rescue." He jotted a note. "And what made you start digging into that? After all this time?" She hesitated. The truth wasn't clean. It never was. "I saw the photo once, online. A cropped version. Just me, Mark, and Bethany. But something about it felt wrong. Empty. When I found the full version, it was like someone had erased part of the truth. And when I looked closer, I saw her. The fourth child," he said quietly. May nodded. "Yes. Had you ever seen her before that?" "Yes," she whispered. "I think I remembered her. Not clearly, not until I saw the photo. But when I did, something inside me just knew. Her face, her name. It was like it had been buried in me, pushed out." Howard leaned forward. "Can you say her name now?" May's eyes dropped to the table, her lips parted, and out came the name that had once been sealed behind time. "Kyla!" The word hung in the air, delicate and heavy. Howard scribbled quickly but with care. "Kyla," he repeated. "Do you remember anything else about her?" May nodded slowly. "She used to sing at night. I remember the sound, soft, like a lullaby. When it was dark and we were locked in our rooms, I'd hear her through the walls. She used to tap, little knocks between us. I'd knock back. We didn't speak, but we connected, like that." His pen paused mid-sentence. "Your siblings don't recall her." "I know," May said. "Mark swore he didn't, but when I told him I found the hatch, he slipped. He said I didn't think she'd still be there." Howard sat up straighter, the shift in his body language unmistakable. "Still be there?" "Exactly," May said. "He knew." The detective nodded solemnly. "I'll be speaking with him." Then, gently, "Tell me what else you found in the crawl space." May took her time, listing it all. The pink canvas shoe, the broken dolls, the mirror, the stick figure drawing. The writing, too. "I am the fourth." And the drawing on the beam. 4 stick figures, 3 with X's, 1 circled. When she finished, the room fell into silence. Howard sat still, tapping his pen against the notebook rhythmically, lost in thought. "We've got forensics in the house now," he finally said. "What you described matches what they've found so far, no question. That crawl space was used. For how long, we don't know yet, but it was lived in." May exhaled, a long, weighted breath she hadn't known she was holding. "So I'm not crazy." Howard looked up. "Number, you're not. And you may have just blown open a case that no one wanted to admit existed." He rose, reached over, and stopped the recorder. "That's all I need for now. But May, this is going to get darker before it gets better." She knew that already. 20 minutes later, May stepped out into the sunlight. The heat shimmered across the cracked parking lot, and in the distance, the Dawson house stood still behind yellow tape, like a crime scene frozen in amber. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Stop remembering. She never had a name. May dropped the phone. Her hand shook as she bent to pick it up, the message echoing in her mind like a whispered curse. She didn't call Mark. Not this time. Instead, she opened her bag and took out the second copy of the photograph. The one she hadn't shown the detective. This version she had accidentally smudged while scanning it into her laptop. It wasn't until she enhanced the image that she saw it. Something just beneath Kyla's right foot. At first, it looked like shadow, but magnified, sharpened. The truth revealed itself. A chain, thin, metal, looped around a stake in the dirt. Kayla hadn't just been there. She'd been tethered. That night, restless and driven by a force she didn't understand, May drove back out to the house. She didn't go near the porch. Instead, she crept around the side to the collapsed trailer, the one her father used to use as a workshop. The padlock, long rusted, crumbled under her force. Inside, it smelled of rot and old oil. Her flashlight cut across rusted tools, broken furniture, dented paint cans. Then, something behind a tarp. A wooden box. She crouched, fingers trembling, and lifted the lid. Dozens of index cards, yellowed, curled, stained. Each one with a name, a date, except one. Just a card. Dated July 12, 1986. Label, unnamed, bright hair, unregistered. May's blood turned to ice. They'd cataloged her. Like livestock. Like a number. And they never even gave her a name. The next morning, the forensic truck pulled up, tires groaning on gravel. A team of technicians in pale jumpsuits stepped out, eyes scanning the overgrown property like it was some ancient ruin. May stood at the edge of the yard, watching the yellow tape flutter like warning flags in a battlefield. She hadn't slept. She had spent the night in her motel room, staring at that index card, turning it over in her hands again and again like it might reveal more if she just held it long enough. Kayla was known. She had existed. She was documented. And yet, erased. Detective Howard approached. "We're about to go under the porch. You don't have to be here." "I do," May said, and she meant it. The trap door had been reinforced. Forensics had rigged a support system to keep the porch from collapsing. They had also scanned the interior cavity and found it extended further than May had originally seen. An L-shaped bend. It curved deeper under the stairs. "Anything we should know before we go in?" one tech asked. May hesitated. She carved drawings, names maybe. Look for the word Kayla, and anything. Chained. They nodded and slipped inside. May crouched close, watching as flashlights swept across the darkness. Dust swirled. Beetles scattered. Then, "Detective!" May followed as Howard descended. The space had changed, expanded. A pit had been uncovered, shallow, about 4 feet wide. A moldy child's mattress lay across it. "This wasn't just a crawl space," Howard muttered. "This was a room." Scratch marks covered the walls. Not random, patterned. 4 at a time, again and again, like tally marks made by fingers. Above the pit, nailed into the beam, a sign, "Princess Pit." The flashlight shook in May's hand. Beside the mattress lay a child's nightgown, torn and faded. Unicorns once bright, now ghosts. A ceramic dish sat beside it. On it, a bouquet of shriveled dandelions, a gift, a prayer, a cry for love. "Detective," another tech called. "There's more." May followed the voice around the bend, her knees scraped on dirt. There, a small ventilation chute, embedded in the wall. A tech reached inside and pulled something free. A folded scrap of paper, yellowed, written in red crayon. Howard opened it. May read the words over his shoulder. "Dear May, you knocked back. Thank you. I'm still waiting. I'm still here. I'm not scared anymore." Her breath caught. The wall game. 4 knocks, then 3, then 1. She used to think it was mice. It was Kayla. Later, in Howard's office, the evidence sat on the table. The nightgown, the note, the dish, the shoe. "You said your parents were arrested for neglect," Howard said. "No abuse. No mention of another child. No records. No witnesses." May stared at the crayon note. "What if they hid her before CPS ever arrived?" she asked softly. "What if she was never meant to be found?" Howard didn't speak. He didn't have to. The silence said it all. "Then someone went to great lengths to erase her," Howard said, his voice low and grave. "And now, we have a body to find." That night, May sank into the motel tub, knees pressed to her chest, arms folded, around herself as if trying to hold in everything that was threatening to spill out. The lights were off. Only the jaundiced glow from the parking lot outside the blinds bled into the room. casting long shadows across the cracked tile walls. She listened to the rhythmic drip of the faucet, to the hum of the air conditioner, to the sound of her own pulse thrumming in her ears. In the room next door, she imagined Bethany sleeping peacefully, utterly unaware of the horror being unearthed in the ruins of their past. May hadn't called her. Not yet. Bethany had been only 4 when they were taken away. Too young to remember the darkness, too delicate to be brought back into it now. May had protected her once. Could she do it again? Her phone buzzed from the sink. She stepped out, dripping, and picked it up. Another message. Unknown number. Do not dig the garden. She was never planted. She was discarded. Her fingers trembled. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't some bored conspiracy theorist. This was someone watching. Someone who had been there. Someone who knew the language. Discarded. Unregistered. Bright hair. Words that should have remained buried. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, the glass fogging under her breath. And then, like a ghost from deep within her subconscious, it surfaced. A lullaby. Software chilling. 4th is not a name to say. 4th will be the one to stay. 1 for food and 2 for light. 3 for sleep and 4 for night. May whispered it aloud, the words leaving her lips like smoke from an old fire. She hadn't thought of that rhyme in nearly 40 years. But now she understood. Calla was the 4th, and she was never meant to leave. May 6th, 2024, 1120 Firebrush Lane. The house was no longer a home. It was an archaeological dig site for buried horrors. Wallpaper peeled like shedding skin. Carpet had been torn out. Floorboards stripped. The air smelled of mildew, rot, and revelations. May wasn't looking down anymore. She was staring at the wall, the exact spot where the family's television used to hang. Behind the wallpaper, a bulge, a warped patch that hadn't been noticed by forensics. She took out her multi-tool and began peeling. The paper hissed as it came away, revealing not just aged wood, but a rectangular cutout in the paneling. Hollow. She pried it open. Inside, dust, decay, and an unlabeled cassette tape, wedged deep into the wall, forgotten or hidden. She cradled it like evidence of a crime no one had dared name. Back at the sheriff's office, Howard studied the tape under the desk lamp. "Where'd you find this?" "In the wall," May replied. "Behind the wallpaper in the living room." He turned it over, brow furrowed. "No label, no date. You sure it's from the 80s? May pointed. "Fuji FXI. That shell design was only made between 84 and 87. He raised an eyebrow. "You know your tapes." She didn't explain. Didn't tell him about her father's sermons. The way he made them listen to hours of recorded vitriol on blank, unlabeled cassettes. Never letting them know what was coming. Never giving them a name to hold on to. A forensic tech was called in and gently loaded the tape into a refurbished player. Click, static, a long hiss, then a man's voice, monotone, familiar. "This is documentation. Subject 4 continues to resist sleep and food conditioning. Isolation protocol resumed. Nightlight revoked." May froze. The voice was unmistakable. Her father. Behavior inconsistent with siblings. Subject exhibits defiant traits, not suitable for transition. Then, in the background, a whimper, a child's voice. "Please, I'll be good." May covered her mouth, her heart pounding. Tears welled, but she held them back. Then came the rhyme, a chorus, her siblings, her own voice, once young. 1 for food and 2 for light, 3 for sleep and 4 for night. The tech paused the tape. Howard stared at the player like it had grown teeth. "That voice," May whispered. "That's my father. He recorded everything. That's why he had the tapes. She couldn't finish. Couldn't speak the truth yet. She didn't need to. Howard stepped out into the hall, and her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She didn't pass the test. That's why she stayed. May sat frozen. Then the tears came, slow and soundless. She hadn't realized she was crying until droplets hit the desk. That night, she went back. The front door was barely holding, secured with a zip tie and a "Do Not Enter" sign. She ignored it. She had to understand. Reinforcement cycle. Conditioning. This wasn't discipline. This was programming. Room by room, she searched, her flashlight cutting slices through the darkness. She didn't call Mark. He hadn't responded in days. Then, in the hallway, a breeze touched her skin. Faint, cool. It was coming from below. Not the crawl space, not the porch, something else. She rolled back the hall rug. There, beneath it, a metal grate. Screwed down, hidden. She ran back to her car, grabbed her tools, unscrewed it. When she lifted the panel, a gust of sour air surged upward. The tunnel was small, less than 3 feet tall, paneled in wood, soundproof foam overhead. A camera mount bolted in the corner. She crawled inside. The air was suffocating, the darkness absolute. It led to a room, a secret chamber beneath the house, a chair, metal, bolted to concrete, a tray, a box of brand new My Little Pony toys, tags still on, bribes, bait. On the wall, a cracked mirror, etched in crayon. I am the fourth. They said I failed. I hate pink. I am not bad. May collapsed. This wasn't where Calla had lived. This was where they broke her. When she emerged, the sun was dipping into the trees. She sat on the porch steps, body shaking, soul unraveling. A dog barked in the distance. A porch light flickered. Her phone rang. "Mark," she answered. "You found the room, didn't you?" Silence. "She never passed their test," he said. "They called her defective, disobedient, said she couldn't be reformed like we were." "We were children," May whispered. "I know. Why didn't you tell me she existed?" "I didn't know," Mark said, voice cracked with guilt. "Not until they took her. They erased her, May, like she was a mistake. I was 7. I didn't understand. But I remember the night she stopped singing through the wall. They told me it was a dream." "She was real," May said. "I know," Mark whispered. "Now I remember." He hung up. May looked out at the yard, her nightmare, and for the first time, she said the name aloud. Not in fear, not in regret, but in defiance. "Calla," and the wind whispered back. May 7th, 1120 Firebrush Lane, the furnace room. Its door had been sealed not with locks, but with layers of paint, as if the house itself had tried to hide it, bury it. The handle snapped as she turned it. The crowbar did the rest. The room exhaled darkness. Inside, cinder block walls, no windows. The furnace, cast iron and monstrous, still stood like a shrine to silence. Its mouth was open, black, jagged. May stepped closer, and there, in the ashes, a porcelain doll, cracked, scorched, one eye missing. Its dress had burned away, but one thing remained, a name, handwritten in red marker across the hemline. Calla May stumbled back. The doll had never been hers, or Bethany's, or Mark's. Their mother had banned porcelain dolls. "Eyes like spies," she'd say. "They whisper at night." So who gave this one a name? Later that day, she sat on the back porch steps, the doll sealed in an evidence bag beside her, her hands scraped, her face streaked with soot. Howren pulled up, silent as a storm cloud. She handed him the bag. "I think they burned her things," she said softly. "One at a time, after they took her." He looked at the crawl space, the conditioning room, the sealed furnace. "I've never seen a case like this," he said. "She was never a case," May replied. "That's the point. They never reported her, because they never let her exist." He nodded. "We're checking every missing child report between 1980 and 1986. Every Jane Doe." May looked at the doll. "If she was never documented," she said, "she'll never show up in any system." "Unless we find her," Howren finished. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her something small, wrapped in plastic. "This came from evidence storage," he said, and May, exhausted, bleeding, but no longer alone, took it with both hands. Because the forgotten don't stay silent forever. May unfolded the aged scrap of paper Howard handed her. Its edges crinkled, yellowed, like it had waited decades to be touched again. A crude floor plan sketched in pencil, clearly by a child's hand. Rooms were labeled simply May's room, Mark's room, bathroom, Mom and Dad. But in the center, my room, not allowed. Next to it, 4 stick figures behind bars. One was circled. May's fingers ran across the drawing like she was tracing a lost language. This wasn't mine," she said softly. "Or Mark's, and Bethany. She couldn't even draw yet." "We found it hidden in a dresser," Howard said, voice low. "Stuck between the boards. No fingerprints, no name. Nothing usable at the time." "It was hers," May whispered. "Kayla's room. Not allowed." That night, May dreamt of the furnace room, but in her dream, it wasn't dark. A low red glow pulsed from within the cast-iron furnace, like something still burned inside. The doll she'd found stood on blackened legs and spoke, not with Bethany's voice, but with a voice May hadn't heard in nearly 40 years, the voice of the forgotten. "They put me in the dark so I couldn't be seen," the doll said, "and then they told me I was only real when I obeyed." Then it reached for her. Its porcelain fingers touched her lips. "Give me my name back." May woke choking on air, gasping as if something had been pulled from her throat. The next morning she drove to the long-term care facility where her mother, Delia Dawson, 81, legally incompetent, had spent the last 5 years in silence. Stroke had stolen her voice, and dementia had chipped away everything else. The nurses warned her that Delia rarely responded. May expected nothing. But this wasn't about answers. It was about confrontation. In the sunroom, May sat across from her mother, the woman who had held their secrets tighter than blood. Her face was slack, pale, her eyes fixed on a bird feeder just outside the window. May placed 2 photographs on the table, one cropped, one full. "Who is she?" May asked. No answer. "I remember her name," May continued. "And so do you. You made her say it. Then you made us pretend she didn't exist, but she did." Delia's head tilted. Her eyes never left the feeder. A cardinal landed. Then, barely audible, Delia whispered, "4 was too loud." May froze. Delia's lips twitched. 4 tried to bite. 4 didn't sleep. 4 didn't listen. So 4 had to be quiet. May's voice cracked. "What did you do to her?" Delia blinked slowly. Her mouth moved. Then, like a whisper from rusted hinges, "He buried her where the light doesn't go." May stood in the gutted living room the next day, holding her mother's words in her chest like a flame she couldn't put out. Where the light doesn't go. Howard combed through a stack of old county blueprints. None of them included the crawl space, or the princess pit, or the conditioning shaft. All of those had been added later. "What if there's more?" May asked. "You think there's another room?" he asked. "I think this house was built to hide people, not things." She moved across the room, stepping over exposed subfloor. Under where the couch used to sit, something caught her eye. A rusted grate, sealed not with screws, but with bolts. "You ever seen a vent sealed like this?" she asked. Howard ran his hand over it. "Not HVAC. Could be plumbing, or something else." May grabbed a wrench and went to work. Each bolt fought back, as if resisting. But one by one, they gave way. Beneath the grate, a narrow shaft, sloping downward, earthy, cold, no wiring, no ductwork, just dirt and darkness. She didn't wait. She slid in. Howard followed with a flashlight. The tunnel was crude, wood panels, rebar, barely 2 feet high. It descended, then leveled out into a corridor lined with chicken wire and plastic siding. The air turned damp and sour. They reached a wall. Wood planked, padlocked, old. "This wasn't for airflow," May said. "No," Howren replied. "This was a holding space." He radioed for bolt cutters. Minutes later, the lock snapped. Behind it, a room, 8 by 10 feet. No windows, no light. Just mildew, damp air, and a smell like rust and rot. In the center, a child's rocking chair. Against one wall, a rusted bed frame, a tattered blanket sewn with faded princess crowns, and beneath it, a plastic-wrapped bundle. May stopped breathing. Howren moved first, gloved, careful. He pulled back the plastic. Inside, small bones, curled fetal, clutched in tiny fingers, a ceramic butterfly, cracked but whole. May collapsed. "I gave her that," she whispered. "She cried at night. I dropped it through the grate." She reached for it, but Howren stopped her gently. "We'll preserve it," he said. But May wasn't looking at the bones anymore. She was looking at the wall behind the bed. Words scratched into the wood, raw, deep. "I was the fourth. My name was Kala. Please don't forget me." That night the remains were bagged and tagged. Everyone knew whose bones they were. Howren drove May back to the motel. They didn't speak until the car stopped. "If this goes to trial, will you testify?" he asked. She shook her head. "I don't want justice. I want to bury her. I want to give her a stone, a name, a place to belong." Howren nodded. "You'll get that." She stared out the window and whispered, "She remembered me." Back in her motel room, May sat on the bed, butterfly in hand. Its paint still bright, the happy face still smiling. She'd made it in first grade, for Mother's Day, but her mother never took it. So she gave it to the girl in the wall, and Kala had held it until the end. Her phone buzzed again. "Unknown number. You dug too deep. Now the others will come." May didn't answer. She powered off the phone, removed the SIM card, flushed it. Then she sat in silence. And from somewhere far away, or maybe from somewhere deep inside, came that rhythm again. 4 taps, 3, 1, May 9th, her childhood bedroom. It was nearly unrecognizable now. The filth was gone. The mold had been stripped. Sunlight bled through the windows. For the first time in decades, the room looked almost normal. Almost. She stepped inside slowly, scanning every corner. The walls, though cleaned, still bore scars. The closet stood warped but intact. She opened it. Kneeling before the shelf where she used to hide forbidden drawings, her fingers brushed something soft, a stuffed rabbit, its fur stiff, its eyes clouded with time. She turned it over and found a patch of pink corduroy crudely sewn into its back. She tugged the thread. It unraveled. Inside, a notebook, no bigger than a deck of cards, wrapped in plastic, bound with blue yarn. She opened it. The first page read, "If I'm not here, I'm still here. Find the butterflies. They show the way. I am Kala. I was loved once." May's hands shook. The pages were filled with drawings, butterflies, spirals, stars. Beneath each, a name. Not hers, not Mark's, not Bethany's. Angela, pink butterfly. Tessa, green butterfly. Mira, orange spiral. Eve, double star. Me, blue butterfly. Alone. Each marked with a number, each with a location. Under the stairs, behind the wall, inside the trailer, in the furnace room. The last page. If I'm gone, tell them I remember, even when they tried to take it away. Back at the sheriff's office, May sat across from Howren, the notebook open between them. He had read every page. Twice. "These names, these symbols," he began. "Do you think they were other children?" "I do," May said. "Kayla wasn't the only one." Howren paced, frustration mounting. "Why wasn't any of this in the case file? Why didn't CPS find this?" "Because they weren't looking," May said. "They came for 3 kids. Kayla was already in the crawl space. Maybe the others had already been relocated, or worse." He looked at the notebook again. "We'll excavate every location." May pointed to one drawing. This says mirror trailer next to the fan. That's where I found the first index card. There could be more. And the shed? We were never allowed near it, May said. Dad called it the burn house. 3 hours later, the forensic team reopened the trailer. Behind the rusted utility fan, buried in a false panel, they found 3 more index cards, each identical to the first. Subject 5, Tessa, too small. Relocated. Subject 7, Mira, defective. Quiet room. Subject 8, Angela, compliant. Transferred. May stared at the word relocated and felt the bile rise in her throat. This wasn't just abuse, Howard muttered. This was a system. May said nothing, because deep down she already knew. This went beyond her family. This was organized, and it wasn't over yet. May's fingertips brushed over the last entry in Kayla's notebook. Me, blue butterfly, alone. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "You weren't alone." She flipped to the line below it. Not a name, just a sentence. There was one more, but I never saw her face. I think she lived in the wall. May froze. Her pulse surged as she turned back to the photo, the one from the rescue, now digitally enhanced and printed in high resolution. She zoomed in on the far left corner, just behind the porch column, where light and shadow fought for dominance. There, almost swallowed by the house's decaying siding, was a sliver of a face. A child's face, blurred, barely visible, but definitely there. Not Kala, not herself, someone else. May 10th, 2024. The West Wall, Dawson House. The image haunted her. That sliver of presence, an eye, a cheek, hidden by warped wood, burned into her mind like a brand. She stood in the backyard, morning light catching on her printed photo, now circled with a red marker. She held it up against the west-facing wall of the house, aligning angles. The wood had rotted and bent over time, but the architectural memory of the place remained. She traced the boards with her fingers. 4th slat down, 2 boards over, she whispered. She was inside the wall. Howard arrived moments later, his face haggard, coffee in hand. "You really believe this is another child?" he asked. May nodded, not breaking eye contact with the house. "I know it is. Kayla mentioned her, said she never saw her face. Just heard her moving behind the walls. She called her the one who doesn't speak." He stared at the photo again, then back at the siding. "We'll get the team." By afternoon, demolition techs lined the west wall. Gloves on, cameras documenting. May refused to leave. Plank by plank, the siding came off. Then, a sound. A hollow knock. One tech froze. Knocked again. It wasn't drywall, not brick, a cavity. They pulled back insulation, rotted, dense with mold, and there it was, a hidden hatch, barely the size of a cabinet door. No handle, just a pink ribbon stapled at the top like a child's last desperate attempt at escape. The tech pried the nails free. Dust fell like ash. The hatch groaned open. Flashlights pierced the dark. Inside, shelves made from broken boards, a deflated pillow, a plastic Hello Kitty cup, shredded blankets, and scratched into the wall, one name, Elise. May gasped. That's her. Beneath the name, tally marks, hundreds, some crossed out, others circled, a silent calendar of suffering, etched beside them, not seen, not chosen, not pretty, not loud, still here, still me. Howard crouched, jaw tight. My God, this wasn't a hiding place. This was a cage. Before anyone could stop her, May climbed inside. The air was lifeless. Every surface bore scratches, years of attempts to claw reality into wood. On the shelf, a torn photo. 3 girls in front of the house. None were May, Mark, or Bethany. One wore a paper crown, another a tag labeled number 9. On the back, in red ink. They took the ones who listened. That evening, May sat in Howard's office surrounded by evidence. The notebook, the index cards, the torn photo. Howard ran his hands through his hair. 9 kids, maybe more. 10, May said softly. Including Elise. We haven't found her remains. No, May said, eyes glassy. Because she was never meant to be found. She flipped through the notebook again, stopping at a page marked with a gray butterfly. The name next to it had been violently scratched out. Below it, one word, static. And beside that, the wall girl doesn't speak, but she listens, and she records. The next morning, a forensic tech returned from processing the furnace room. She dropped a sealed evidence bag onto the desk. Inside, a tiny magnetic microphone, rusted but intact, pulled from behind a floor vent. I think she was bugging the house, the tech said. Old tech, but functional. They checked the west wall, 2 more mics, and beneath the boards of Elise's space, a cracked cassette recorder. Inside, a single tape labeled in pencil, I am still here. May 11th, Floyd County Sheriff's Office, evidence room. The cassette clicked into the deck. May sat beside Howard, a digital recorder rolling. The techs had cleaned the tape, rewound it with care. But May already knew. Whatever was on it mattered. The hiss of analog static. Then a voice. Small. Hoarse. Barely there. My name is Elise. I live in the wall. I'm not supposed to speak, but if you're hearing this, I'm still here. May clenched the arms of her chair. They put me behind the furnace first. It was cold. I cried too loud. Then they moved me to the crawl space. I counted the spiders. When I learned to stop crying, they gave me the wall. Howard leaned in. I was quiet. I was still. So they let me listen. The other kids didn't last long. Some ran, some got sick. One girl stopped eating. Kayla was the one who hummed. I liked her. The tape paused. Breathing. Staggered. Hollow. He said I was a good ghost, a watcher, a recorder. He said if I stayed still, I could stay. The others were failures. I was functioning static. May's blood turned to ice. They made me record the others, what they said, what they did. I had a button. If they disobeyed, I was supposed to press it. A longer pause. Sometimes I did. Sometimes I didn't. When Kayla disappeared, I stopped pressing it. Then, scratching sounds, movement. This is my last tape. If they find it, I'll be gone. But maybe you'll hear me. Maybe you'll remember me. Because if I disappear and no one remembers me, then maybe I was never really real. Then, footsteps, a door creaking, her voice again, urgent. Don't look under the back steps. That's where they bury the ones who don't listen. Look behind the tree, the one with the broken swing. That's where I saw the papers. Click. Silence. May stared at the machine, fists clenched. She tried to warn someone, even if it killed her. Howard nodded slowly. We need to find that tree. That afternoon, they returned to the house with a cadaver dog and a dig team. The backyard was an overgrown grave. Kudzu, rusted fences, thorn bushes. But May spotted it instantly. The cottonwood tree. The broken swing still dangled, limp in the wind. The dog barked once, then again, then scratched. At 2 feet, the team unearthed a rusted lockbox. Inside, papers, water-damaged, but legible. Letterhead, St. Augustine Center for Behavioral Alignment. Date, September 1985. Subject number 6, Elise. Receptivity to isolation above threshold. Next page. Phase 3 candidates should be selected based on obedience over emotional affect. Previous failures, i.e., Kayla. Show affection is not predictive of loyalty. May's eyes filled with tears. This wasn't abuse. Howard nodded grimly. This was research. The final page listed names. Subject number 3, May, integrated. Subject number 4, Kayla, expired. Subject number 5, Tessa, relocated. Subject number 6, Elise, retained. Subject number 7, Mira, quiet room. Subject number 8, Angela, transferred. May flinched at one word. Expired, as if she were spoiled milk, as if her existence had a shelf life. That night, May sat in the motel tub, dry, Cold. The notebook on her lap. The tape deck beside her. She replayed Elise's voice again, not to hear the words but what was behind them. And in the static, between the breaths, she heard something else. Click, whir, beep. Not human, not memory. A machine. Still listening, still recording. And maybe, just maybe, still waiting. May's trembling fingers traced the final entry in Kala's notebook. Me, blue butterfly. Alone. Her voice cracked. You weren't alone. She flicked to the next line. Not a name, but a sentence. There was one more, but I never saw her face. I think she lived in the wall. Her heart froze. She turned again to the rescue photo, enhanced, printed, circled, with obsessive care. In the corner behind the porch column, hidden beneath warped siding and shadow, a sliver of a child's face. Not Kayla, not May, someone else. May 10th, 2024. She stood before the west wall of the house, matching angle to printed image, confirming her fear. She was inside the wall, she whispered. Detective Howard arrived beside her, coffee in hand, exhaustion in his eyes. You think it's another kid? He asked. Absolutely. He examined the siding. We'll send the techs. They pried boards away, revealing insulation, then an unexpected hollow knock. A hidden hatch, rose ribbon flush at the top, pried open. Inside, shelves of broken slats, bedding, a Hello Kitty cup, and a scratched name, Elise. Under it, hundreds of tally marks, some crossed out, some circled, etched near the bottom, not seen, not chosen, not loud, still here, still me. This is a cell, Howard said. May climbed inside, discovered another photo, 3 unknown girls, one tagged number 9. On the back, in red ink, they took the ones who listened. That evening, May and Howard reviewed the evidence. The notebook, cards, photos, 9 children, maybe 10, May murmured. Howard nodded. We haven't found Elise yet. She wasn't meant to be found, May replied. Flipping to a gray butterfly page, she read faint words. Static. The wall girl doesn't speak. She listens, and she records. The next day, a forensic tech dropped a small evidence bag, a rusted magnetic microphone retrieved from an old vent. I think she bugged the house, she said. They found 2 more hidden mics and a battered cassette recorder labeled, I Am Still Here. May 11th, 2024. At the sheriff's office, May sat across from Howard. The cassette clicked into the deck. Static hissed, then a small, distant voice. My name is Elise. I live in the wall. If you're hearing this, I'm still here. The voice described being moved from the furnace room to crawl space to the wall chambers. She counted spiders. She stopped crying. She listened. She said she had worn a button to signal disobedience, but after Kala disappeared, she stopped pressing it. Her voice waned. Don't look under the back steps. Look behind the tree with the broken swing. That's where I saw the papers. May sat stunned. She tried to warn us. Howard nodded. We find the tree, digging beneath the cottonwood with the broken swing. A cadaver dog scratch, then rusted lockbox. Inside, official papers from the St. Augustine Center for Behavioral Alignment, dated 1985 to 86. Subject number 6, Elise, receptive to conditioning. A table listing subjects, May, Kayla, Tessa, Elise, Mira, Angela. Outcomes, Kayla expired. Elise static. Tessa relocated. Mira quiet room. Angela transferred. It's research, Howard whispered. May closed her eyes. Not abuse. A system May 17th, 2024. At a quiet rural cemetery beneath a weeping pine, May buried Kayla with headstone. Kayla Dawson, 1981 to 1986. Paper butterflies lay at the graveside. L then buried Elise beside it, the ceramic butterfly placed with care. May dropped a tag labeled Subject 6 into the dirt alongside it. Back in her apartment, May cataloged everything in Project Butterfly. documents, tapes, cards, images, making it public. She closed her laptop and waited. At 2:17 a.m., a message pinged. I was subject 9. I remember the tree. I remember her voice. May typed, "We dig, we name, we remember, and we never let it happen again." May 18th, 2024. At the State Forensics Lab, the Elise reel-to-reel tape is fully restored. Date: June 8th, 1986. One day before May, Mark and Bethany were rescued. Elise's voice: "I wasn't meant to survive. I saw everything. Calla said they took her there. A woman with red hair made her choose, so they called her defective." The recording continued. Elise named another child. Juniper never assigned a number. "She disappeared morning they rescued you. They buried her under the shed," Elise whispered. "Please don't let me be the last one remembered." Later they excavated under the shed and confirmed remains of Juniper, a pink sandal, hair tied with yellow string, a fragment of dress. Juniper was buried without record, number, or name. May 21st, 2024. Juniper was buried with a simple headstone. Juniper, the one they never numbered. May launched Subject 1 through 11 files in Project Butterfly. Each child named, symbol marked, last known location recorded. 1 month later, Butterfly Circle, National Memorial for Forgotten Children, 3 hours from Floyd County. A 12-foot sculpture of a child's hand releasing steel butterflies from salvage. Vent covers, tape reels, from ruined homes. At the memorial, May stood with families, survivors, descendants. Some traveled hundreds of miles. A young girl from Ohio placed a drawing of a 3-eyed butterfly. She said, "It was in my dream. The girl in the wall gave it to me." May carefully folded it into Elise's notebook. That night, in her apartment, May opened a blank journal page. The 4th child was never named, but she was never alone. She entered subject number 12, unknown : Missouri : 3-eyed butterfly. She turned on her laptop to search again, because the story wasn't over.